before the holiday break that these first few, these for the next couple of months, our focus will be on maritime and biotech careers. As we kick off, sorry, I've got a lot of pop-ups happening. As we kick off our program. So super excited. We have some really amazing guests that are going to be with us this for the next, excuse me, I can't even get it together. Can you tell I've been gone for a while? I haven't had to talk with you all, but we have several super amazing guests who are going to be speaking about their careers in biotech and maritime. And tonight we have a really awesome guest as well. And so here shortly, I'm going to share with him. But do I have Miss Amari here? Okay. Not yet. Okay. So, as you all know, we have a really cool, we have the youth job spot on, Raina, do you mind sharing the youth job spot? Pulling it up? You don't mind? Sorry, you may have been doing something else. But as you all know, we have the youth job spot, which is a spot where you can go and find all the latest available jobs throughout the Bay Area and beyond. All of the job fairs that are listed, apprenticeships, all those industry priority positions are also listed. So transportation, healthcare, construction, all of those things are all of those career paths are all listed there. You can find more information. Miss Amari is who you can connect with if you ever have questions about the youth job spot. Again, check it out. Don't miss out on those great opportunities. There's seasonal work there for those who just want to work for certain periods of time. Miss Raina has dropped it in the chat. Thank you, Raina, so much. I should have been prepared for that. Miss Raina has dropped it in the chat how you can get to the youth job spot. Feel free to reach out to any of us if you have any questions or concerns about the youth job spot. So again, welcome back, everybody. I'm so glad you guys joined and turning out in record numbers tonight. I'm so glad to see you. All right. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest speaker for the evening, Mr. Terence Candell. Did I pronounce your last name right, Terence?
Candell. Yeah.
Candell, Mr. Terence Candell. I don't want to mispronounce his name. So, Terence Candell is a legislative analyst and civil rights officer with over a decade of experience spanning public transportation, policy development, community advocacy. He's born and raised in East Oakland, California, and he brings a deep commitment to equity and mobility improvements for the Bay Area communities. Terrence began his career on the water, working as a ferry deckhand for 7 years before earning a 100-ton inland vessel master's license. Woo woo. He has also contributed to several political policies, including the recent successful campaign for Oakland Council member Rowena Brown. He holds a bachelor's degree in mass communications and a master's in public administration from California State University, East Bay. I heard Raina say, "Go Pioneers." I know nothing about Cal East Bay, but go Pioneers. Currently serving as the Government and Regulatory Affairs Specialist for San Francisco Bay Ferry. Terrence oversees the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, all civil rights initiatives, and the agency's legislative program. So please give Mr. Candell a round of applause for joining us tonight. Terrence, I am super excited. You answered the call when I reached out to you, and I'm super excited, and you're bringing others with you. So pull the next person up. So I appreciate you for that, and the floor is yours.
Let me go ahead and share my screen here.
Feel free to drop your questions in the chat as Mr. Candell is getting ready for the evening.
Okay, can everyone see my PowerPoint?
Thumbs up, we can.
Yes.
Okay. So good evening. I'm Terence Candell, the Government and Regulatory Affairs Specialist for San Francisco Bay Ferry / Water Emergency Transportation Authority. So we kind of have two names at the moment, but we try to go by San Francisco Bay Ferry. So I'll give just a bit of background on myself. And Anissa gave a pretty full background, but born and raised in Oakland, California. I have my bachelor's and master's from Cal State East Bay, and my master's is in public administration, and that's primarily what I do. I'm actually third generation in maritime. So my grandfather was a deckhand for about 40 years, and my mother worked on the land side, but we were all worked for the same company in Golden Gate. And there's this really like old camera phone picture here on the right from about 10, 11 years ago. Um, I am a former deckhand, so I worked on the boats as one of the people who brought the vessel in and out, cleaned the vessels, did maintenance, repair, kept the vessels moving, kept them clean and looking good. So I've done everything associated with ferry vessels. And just a bit more context for those who haven't been on on a ferry. Our ferries are 100 tons. They're about 70 feet long, and they have different configurations to go in and out of ports. And so a lot of what the deckhands do there is tie the boats up when they go in, untie the boats when they go out, keep them clean, shepherd people on across our gangways. And I'll have a few pictures to give you a better idea of what that looks like. I was also the union shop steward, and I'm very pro-union. Union jobs are the best jobs. Um, pretty much all of the ferry work on the bay are union jobs. So for deckhands, for captains, they all are a part of a union. Even the landside jobs, like supervisors, they're all part of a union, and they're strong unions. So there's great pay, great benefits, great protection and community within these unions. And I highly recommend anybody who's looking for that kind of work, go ahead and ask those unions and join those unions. I was also a licensed vessel master. They call it vessel master, as a captain. So the vessels that we're on are 100 gross tons, so they're huge. And you have to spend 360 days on the water. So it takes about 5 or 6 years of full-time work on a vessel to get enough time to go take a test and get your license, get certified for your license. You have to take a class, week long with the Coast Guard, and then at the end you take a test, you get your license, and it's basically everything that you've learned on the water. So if you see a captain, on the water, just know he knows his stuff. He knows charting, navigation, how all of the vessels work, and can teach you a lot about being on the water. In my administrative background, so I am the government and regulatory affairs specialist for San Francisco Bay Ferry. So what that means is I handle all of our civil rights and regulation for contracting and for operations. So I handle the Title VI, the Civil Rights Program. We make sure that that we have non-discrimination across our entire service. And I provide regular trainings for all of the employees on non-discrimination practices. Um, I also am the legislative analyst. So policies that affect ferries or water transportation or just transportation around California. I am heavily involved in that. We put in applications for grants for, tens of millions of dollars to build new ferries, to build new terminals. I go and speak before Assembly and Senate committees down in Sacramento, basically, begging for more money. Um, but it's nice and fulfilling work when you go down and you plead a case as to why you should have legislative support for what we do, and then we see it go into action. We see more ferries and we see more riders and policies making it easier for us to provide more transportation. So that's what I do. That's my background. So background on WIDA, on San Francisco Bay Ferry. It was established as the Water Transit Authority, WTA, in 1999. It was just an administrative oversight agency. So, the ferries operated and this agency just oversaw the operation of these vessels. In 2007, it became the Water Emergency Transportation Authority, uh, where it was given a mandate to provide emergency response and disaster response, as well as consolidate ferry transportation. So what that means is if there's an earthquake, if there's just recently, I think last month there was a tsunami warning, we have to be prepared to go into action. We will launch our ferries to be able to transport emergency responders to and from San Francisco to other parts of the Bay, move people if we need to get them off of San Francisco or out of other places, because San Francisco usually is that disaster zone where most of the damage would happen. And so we have to be prepared to use the bay to move people and supplies back and forth. So that's one of our mandates. The other mandate is to consolidate ferry service, so that, essentially that's just one system. And we're trying to be like the bus on the water. There's a lot more that goes into it, especially with being on the water. And a lot of maritime stuff that I won't get into detail with, but it's a lot more difficult to run ferry service than it is a bus, but we do it. So the agency, San Francisco Bay Ferry, it consists currently of 26 public employees. So we're really small in comparison to other agencies. Other agencies have hundreds of employees, but we are only 26, and we have 5 departments. And the way this works is we contract our operation to a company called Blue and Gold Fleet. So this company, Blue and Gold Fleet, they handle our day-to-day operations. They hire the workers, they hire the deckhands, they hire the captains, they put out the schedules. We help to design the schedules, but they put them out. They're the ones that you contact if you want to know more about service, and we just provide the administrative oversight, a bit on the larger scale from a state, federal level. Um, so we don't directly operate, but we have a lot of involvement on how our ferries operate. So, speaking of our ferries, our fleet consists of 17 high-speed ferries. So these ferries are called catamarans. It's the type of ferry. It's when you see they have a double hull. Underneath is empty, and it kind of skates on 2 sides down at the bottom. And they're high speed, which means they go faster than, most boats would. They go about 30 to 35 knots on average, and knots in translation to miles is about 35 to 40 miles per hour. They can go faster, but we're not allowed to go faster. Um, and so we transport about 3 million people annually, or at least we did. After the pandemic, our numbers have reduced drastically. We're about, 60 or 70% of what we used to take. A lot of people are still, at home, not going into the city for work. So we're still recovering our ridership, but we still take millions of people across the bay. We've actually added a lot of ferries over the last 10 years. We've had 7 new ferries join us, a few different classes of ferry. We have ferries that range from 225 passengers to 440 passengers. So they get really big and they can fit a lot of people. We do have something called the Service Vision Plan. By 2050, we want to expand our service to reach all over the Bay Area. This here is a map of what we'd like to see our ferry service look like. Um, to go all over the Bay Area. So currently, we go to Vallejo, we go to San Francisco, we go to Alameda, we go to Oakland, we go to Richmond, but we're looking at other places like Redwood City, Berkeley, other parts of the South Bay, other parts of the North Bay. We'd like to double the number of vessels, triple the number of vessels, and more. To be able to have regular service going at all times. The buses come, supposed to every 15 minutes. We'd like to be able to do the same. So these are some of the ideals that we're looking at for our service vision plan. So I'll run through some of our projects. Some of our past projects consist of something called the hydrogen vessel, MVC change. And um, a bit of context, our current focus is to transition to zero emission. We want to have the cleanest fleet of transportation vessels in the nation. And currently, we're leading that effort. So we had a project called the MVC change, maiden vessel sea change, and that was an all hydrogen vessel. It fit only about 70 people, and it was about 40 feet long. But it was all hydrogen, which means it didn't burn any oils, any fuels, um, and was completely zero emission. And we ran that project for a while. I'll go into that in more detail. We have a couple of major facilities, our North and Central Bay facilities. These are our main hubs for all of our vessels. So in that previous picture, you saw our vessels parked at the docks. That was one of our facilities. Those are kind of our crowning achievements for headquarters. I'll go into those a little bit. Some of our current projects, ones that I've been involved in, are procuring 150 and 400 passenger electric vessels. So these would be all electric ferry vessels that would go to and from Alameda, Oakland, San Francisco. Some of the shorter routes, we wouldn't be able to go all the way out to Vallejo from San Francisco. The technology isn't there yet, but these will be very innovative new vessels that we've got coming. Along with those, zero emission universal charging floats. So a place where these vessels can come in, dock, and charge. I'll also go into our Working Waterfront Coalition, which I've had the pleasure of being a part of. As we expand and we have this lofty goal of having, 4 or 5 times the number of boats and terminals that we have now, we're going to need people to work those jobs. We need people to construct the floats, the infrastructure, the electric technology. We need them to man the boats, captain the boats. And so part of our push with the Working Waterfront Coalition is to build that workforce from the ground up, give them training, give them hands-on exposure to the maritime industry, and get them into this job flow. And then I'll go briefly over some of our future projects. We're looking to expand to Treasure Island, Berkeley, and Redwood City, have all of our vessels transition to zero emission current vessels by 2035, and talk a little more about our 2050 service vision. So this is just a picture of our Central Bay facility. It's in Alameda. Um, you can see in the background is the USS Hornet. If you've ever been to the Hornet or know where that is, our facility is right next to it. This is where the majority of our vessels are parked. We keep about 12 vessels parked here. At the end of the day, when we're done with service, they all come home to this farm here. We have, different classes of vessels. This is the Bay Breeze, that's the first vessel there. That is about a 225 passenger vessel. And as you go further down, they get bigger and bigger to about 440 passengers. So this is where our main vessels are parked. We also have a facility in Vallejo. The facility is the first building that you see next to the dock. It's actually rather small compared to the vessels themselves. The vessels are actually bigger than the facility we work out of. But it's attached to, and the other facility is also attached to workshops for our engineers. So we have a lot of mechanics and engineers coming in to repair our engines, repair any bits and pieces of the boat that come off. All the vessels are made of aluminum, so they need constant repair. We switch out parts. It's just like maintaining a car, kind of like maintaining a sports car that you use for transportation constantly. They burn a lot of fuel, they wear and tear a lot, but they are extremely effective for getting to and from across the bay. And these facilities are critical to making sure that these boats keep running. So this is a rendering of one of our proposed electric vessels. Um, my personal opinion, don't tell them I said that, but I think it's kind of ugly in comparison to the rest of them. But the design itself is meant to make it as aerodynamic and hydrodynamic as possible, make it go across the water as smooth and as quickly as possible, while also providing store. We have a lot of people who come on the boats with their bicycles, so we'll have bike storage in the front, and it'll go about as fast as possible. The battery technology is still new, um, so it can't go as fast as our diesel engines, but we're trying to get that technology ramped up so they can go as fast as possible. A bit more about the MVC change. So this was actually the world's first hydrogen fueled passenger ferry. No one has corrected us on it yet, so we are taking the crown. We teamed up with a private company called All American Marine, and they built the boat that to our specifications. It's about a $5 million project to put all of these fuel cells in the boat to cycle it out and produce drinkable water. So as the boat runs, it runs for only $1 a day. The cost of the fuel. It's completely zero emission, and then you can drink the runoff from the fuel cells. And I've had it myself, and it's actually quite clean water. It's a marvel. We don't have this vessel anymore. It was a 1 year demonstration project, and it took a lot of work. But we had a lot of folks come on and become captains. Become deckhands familiar with this, become captains familiar with this. And so as we go on and we perfect the technology, we're going to have a lot more of these vessels. So we'll have a lot more opportunity to um, do work on these vessels. This is just a bit more about our zero emission transition. It's called the Rapid Electric Emission Free Ferry Program. We want to convert all of our vessels and all of our terminals to zero emission, including hydrogen, but that one is, difficult and expensive. So we are working on our electrification of all of our vessels. And one of the projects for electrification are our docks. So right now we have a contract out for, the shipyards. We have a lot of shipyards that we work with. And and this is new. This is new for all of us. But what we're trying to do is put electric fuel cells into a new dock, and our boats will come in and they will plug right into this new zero emission dock. And so the dock will charge the boat, and the dock itself will be run on electricity, so the entire system would be completely electric. There's a lot of, engineering specifications that go into this that I couldn't begin to explain to you. I leave that to my engineering department. Those are the guys. But it's some really cool technology that's coming through, and again, a lot of opportunity for working on new and innovative construction projects. This is the idea for, the conversion for all of our vessels. So all of the vessels that you saw in the previous pictures, those are all going to be converted to electricity. Currently, those all run on uh, diesel engines. So we'll take those engines out, we'll put electric engines in, and they'll run on completely electric energy. So the Working Waterfront Coalition. This here is a picture of our first cohort of the Working Waterfront Coalition. This picture was taken in October. And you can see Nancy Pelosi Emeritus. The two gentlemen to the right, to the far right, are the orchestrators of the program. Uh, the guy in the black coat, his name is Bobby Winston. He actually is one of the people who founded WTA in 1999. So, he's a pioneer in the maritime industry. If you ever get involved in the maritime industry and you happen to come across him, definitely pick his brain, say hello. He is quite a mad genius. Uh, but the Working Waterfront Coalition is a workforce development that is specifically designed for maritime. As I said, I've worked on the boats as a deckhand, and in order to get into this field, in order to do that, you have to go to a hiring hall, you have to go to the ferry companies, you have to go and get the work, but you can't really do that if you don't know where to start. So the Working Waterfront Coalition is designed to take people who haven't had a lot of opportunities, get them trained, let them know where the work is, put them one-on-one with a lot of these shipyards. We have shipyards called Bay Ship and Yacht that are right down on the pier, and we'll team. We took 24, a cohort of 24 trainees, and this consisted of people who had been formerly incarcerated or from communities that were typically underprivileged and putting them into an accelerated training program to get them to learn how to weld, how to do electrical, how to do work on the deck, how what the pathway for being a captain is. All of these expansion projects that we have going on, we need a workforce for. So this Working Waterfront Coalition is specifically targeted at bringing people in, getting them trained, and getting them on the water with this work. Um, one thing that I do is called the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program. So with this program, uh, companies that are small and minority or women owned, 51% of the business is owned. So if you are, a black business owner and you only have like 4 or 5 employees, you can be a disadvantaged business enterprise. What this does is it affords you a greater opportunity to get contracts. So say you do um, cleaning, industrial cleaning or something like that with your company. You go in with your equipment, you get places clean. If you're a disadvantaged business, some or all federally funded agencies. So my agency is completely federally funded. We get a bunch of money from the feds to build our boats, to build our docks, to maintain our facilities, and a specific portion of that money has to go to disadvantaged businesses. So you, as a disadvantaged business, have an additional opportunity to get some of that work. One thing that I'm working on with our program is and the Working Waterfront Coalition is to get people trained in and brought into the maritime industry, and if they so desire and they have the gumption to become business owners themselves, to have that advantage as a business owner to get some of this federal contracting money, to learn how to do this electrical work that all of our vessels are going to be transitioned to, and to be able to work on these vessels with your own business and be guaranteed that work and that money. So with that, we have a lot of work and projects that we've got going on, and we are making a serious concerted effort to make sure that we do not leave anybody at the dock, especially underprivileged and disadvantaged communities. And if you are interested in entering the maritime, I am wholeheartedly in support and happy to provide any more information you might want. Yeah, go ahead and stop sharing my screen.
Nice. Terrence, you dropped so much information. It is so cool. Um, Before I get into it, are there any questions at all about maritime careers, anything about Terrence's background? Um, he seems to be very much an open book, lots and lots of experience. Anything anybody want to ask, you can come off mute or you can drop your question in the chat. Right, you got some good jobs in the chat. Oh, okay. What's the timeline for rolling out the zero emission ferries?
Um, The timeline is so we actually have 2 vessels that are going up for contract right. Actually, have been awarded. So a 150 passenger vessel and a 400 passenger vessel are being constructed and hopefully are going to be produced by 2026, 2027 is the timeline. For the rest of our fleet, we expect to have all of our vessels transitioned to that battery electric by 2035.
That's about 10 years. So I know that I think you said your father and your grandfather are both involved in maritime, but outside of their influence, what kind of steered you this direction, and what were some of maybe the hobbies or skill sets that you noticed that you kind of had that kind of led you down this path?
That's actually the great thing about getting started in maritime. Um, if you don't have to have much in terms of skill or background or education. Um, a lot of the folks just kind of ended up in it. They saw it, they ended up on a boat, they thought this is pretty cool. And the people who work the boats, if you ever end up on a boat, they are more than happy to direct you on how to get into it. And you learn the skills, as you go. There's a lot of rope handling. We call them lines. So if you're good with your hands, there's definitely a lot of work for you in maritime. If you like, engineering, working with heavy tools, there's a lot of work for that. I got into it because I liked being on the water. And, one of the best things about the entry level for maritime is that you don't have to have, a lot of skills or background. And you can just work and pick up the skills as you go.
Thank you. Another question here in the chat says, when will the second cohort start?
So the second cohort has actually is actually starting next week. The program runs for I believe it's 8-week program, and there's a short window between, and so they take applications pretty much after the cohort starts. Um, and there's I believe the link for the site was
Just
put in the
drop into.
chat.
Mhm.
Um,
Please feel free to scroll up and check that link in the chat. It is there for you all. Thank you for answering that. Someone else said, what is the most memorable experience you had on the water as a deckhand?
so one of the cool things is that because we're emergency response, we have to respond to any emergencies that happen on the water, especially if we come across them. And one of the things I come across as a deckhand was people's boats capsizing. So I've actually saved people from their boat that has turned over and pulled them out of the water and brought them to safety. They've given commendations to the crew who does it, but it happens more often than you would think. But it always feels really good to, be there for that. Um, and in addition to that, I was a part of the emergency response. So, one thing we have is called a VMAP, the Vessel Master Assistance Program, where if there's a major disaster or if like one of the big boats fails to work and we've got a bunch of people on those boats, we did a big practice where all of the boats from Coast Guard, San Francisco Fire Department, Police Department, they all got together. There were like 30 boats out there to practice taking people from the, damaged boat onto other boats, getting them to safety, coordinating, to putting out fires, and practicing CPR. So from doing this job, we get a lot of, cool life-saving and emergency response experiences.
Yeah. So you're the person to be with in the event that the ship goes down. Uh, do you know, Mr. Ken asked, does he have to know how to swim?
You do not need to know how to swim. Most of the guys that I've worked with do not know how to swim. I know how to swim, but I have only been in the water once. And that was totally my fault. I used to work maintenance, and that's a dangerous job. You don't have to do anything dangerous, and you don't need to know how to swim because you will not be in the water.
Okay. Good to know. I think most of us would assume that you should know how to swim, so that's good to know. Kind of the last two questions. Someone asks, that they have a bachelor's in sociology. Do you think that there might still be like that can transfer over to maritime careers?
Um, Sociology in particular, I don't know if there's like a one-to-one for that. Um, some of the work that's like non-hands-on ends up being, administrative. and in different categories of administration. So you talk about finance administration, you talk about engineering administration, you talk about planning administration.
Mhm.
Those are some of the jobs that transition over into or fields that transition into maritime. But with that said, in order to get into maritime itself, working deck or one of the entry levels, you don't need any other kind of education for it.
Very nice. Yes, ma'am, Miss Danielle, there is room, even if you have your bachelor's in sociology, just hit that link and apply. Um, Someone asked, pretty much what's the age range for your cohort program? Is it 18 to 35? Is there a minimum age and a maximum age? What does that look like?
Currently for the cohort, the minimum is 18 because you have to be 18 in order to get your credential. You have to apply with the U.S. Coast Guard, and they require you to be 18 in order to get it. You have to do a background check and all these kind of things. For the Waterfront Coalition in particular, they do have a cap up to a certain age. Um, but it's also very specifically designed for people who have been formerly incarcerated or who are, part of high school groups, try to get a younger or more disadvantaged crowd in there. But you could be any age to enter into the maritime industry on your own.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you for answering all of our questions. Thank you for giving us just dropping all the gems, telling us what to look forward to, the routes that are potentially going to open up, and just how much more efficient things are going to be out on the water. And just giving a lot of hope tonight too about maritime careers. And I think most of us would have thought you have to have a ton of experience or their sort of background to even qualify. But I think you've definitely opened the door and the idea that maritime careers is for anyone on the call, entry level, like just get started. So if we can just give Mr. Terrence a round of applause for giving up his evening, I'd so appreciate you. I know in the coming Wednesdays, we will have some of Mr. Terrence's colleagues on. So please make sure you join us next week and the week after to meet some other folks from San Francisco Bay Ferry. And so I'm pretty sure this isn't the last time we'll hear from Mr. Terrence. He's amazing. So same time, same place, same link. Just join next week. Um, Peasy, are you raising your hand because you have a question, or are you waving bye-bye?
No, I got a question about something he said.
Okay.
Um, how you doing? First and foremost, my name Clarence Gray. So I heard you say we got to do the background check and stuff with the Coast Guards. I'm currently on parole and I'm a felon. I tried to go apply
Yeah.
at the Coast Guard thing, and they told me the fact that I was a felon. I couldn't do it. So what's the difference from me going by myself and me going through y'all?
So that's actually something we're specifically working on. If you go to that website for the waterfront jobs, um, they are working to get people's records expunged. You get into the program, we're working with a team of lawyers to get records expunged and bypass the whole issue with, having a record. Uh,
Okay,
yep.
I don't mean to cut you off. I just want
Oh,
to
go ahead.
on that real quick. So there's a law. I want to believe it's like 734 something. Don't quote me on that. It's a penal code. So what it is when people are like they've been incarcerated or had a case back in the day and they're off paperwork and they've been clear for so long, it automatically you have to get back in court. That's what them lawyers are gonna do to those people. Long story short stories. A man that did 20 years, he been out 20 years and he couldn't get a house or a job because of his record. So that's why they passed a law last year or the year before last year. I'm not mistaken. It's been like 2 years now because it came out when the Racism Act came out too about that. But that's all I want to know. I wanted to know so if I fill this out or whatever, and hypothetically saying, let's say I go there in the next 60 days,
Yeah.
will they still tell me oh no, your background, you know what I mean?
And that you got to work with the folks at the waterfront jobs. They're going to link you with lawyers who specifically work on this. Uh,
Okay.
to get that expunged because we're specifically looking for folks like you so that we can get those records expunged and get you in it.
Okay.
Yeah, so go ahead, go to the site. You can talk to the folks, get in contact with the folks there, and they can run you through it a bit more.
Okay. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you, Clarence. Thank you, Clarence.
Yes, ma'am.
So if there aren't any additional questions, we're going to give you all your evening back, and we look forward to seeing you all again next week. Same time, same place, 5:30 on Zoom. Bring your bottled water and your snacks and come prepared to hear and learn about some other opportunities, career opportunities, training opportunities. Mr. Terrence, again, I so appreciate you. And I look forward to partnering with you for future opportunities. In the chat, the thank yous are coming. So thank you again. If you have nothing else for us, you can feel free to log off and enjoy your Wednesday. Be safe and God bless y'all.